Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's podcast, we're going to be discussing a couple of news stories. The first one is that the Vault Accounting survey list came out, the 2022. I'm not sure how they're already a year ahead, but they are. And it's the Accounting 50 list with it's got other rankings in there too. And the big news out of there is that PwC is at the top of the list. And a big thing to remember about this list is it's based on feedback from accounting professionals. And it's based on things like compensation, culture, training, work-life balance, among other things. And the big four accounting firms occupied the top 3 spots. PwC number 1, Deloitte number 2, and KPMG is number 3, and E&Y doesn't show up until number 29. What a shame. But I think this list is overly flawed because E&Y should not be number 29. And when I looked at the rankings, what I found out was that E&Y was missing a whole bunch of them, so they must not have had many EY employees respond to the survey. And because EY employees did not respond to this survey, they ended up at number 29. So I think this survey, I don't know how useful it is. And then, so I think this is very flawed. I think if it was ranked correctly, it would be PwC number 1, 2 Deloitte, 3 E&Y, and maybe 4 KPMG. And this is in line with expectations because PwC does really well by their employees as far as big four accounting firms go. And that's what we talked a lot about here on this podcast. We talk about this a lot. And then Deloitte is number 2. Just based on my experience and people I've spoken to. So I think Deloitte would be number 2. And then I think it's between I think E&Y would definitely be above KPMG, wherever KPMG was. But I think E&Y didn't have enough respondents. And then we talked about the differences between the big four accounting firms on the podcast the other day, and those came up on this ranking because PwC was number 1 for audit and PwC was number 2 for tax, which is important to accountants because that's what accountants do. They do audit and tax. PwC has the largest audit practice and the largest tax practice. The only reason Deloitte is bigger than PwC is because Deloitte has a humongous consulting practice. So Deloitte might be better for consultants, but for accountants, PwC is going to be better as far as I'm concerned, and that's the difference between the accounting firms. And another thing that Vault did that I thought was interesting was that they listed by different categories. I mean, they do this every year. We have this on our Big Four accounting firms ranking page as well. But they do this every year, and they had the compensation list, the best compensation. And PwC was the only Big Four accounting firm on there where people were satisfied with compensation. All the other Big Four accounting firms weren't on there. They've been on there in the past, which is kind of shocking. I think there's something going on with this survey, but I could totally see how Big Four accountants would not say that they get paid well. But there's no way that there's accountants at these other accounting firms that are making more than Big Four accountants. And maybe they are, but it's really not that possible in my eyes because these smaller accounting firms don't make enough money compared to the big four accounting firms. I know there's differences, but I just don't see that happening. And then another thing in here is the most sought after benefits in ranked order are health insurance, paid time off, student loan forgiveness, and we know that PwC does that, remote work, 401k, tuition reimbursement, pension, and paid paternal leave. And to me, I think health insurance is important and the 401k, but none of the big four accounting firms are good in any of those categories. They don't offer good benefits compared to industry employers. So that's just something to keep in mind. And that's just something to keep in mind in case you use these vault surveys, because they're misleading. It seems like a really good thing because, oh, it's a survey. It's people that work there, but not necessarily. It could be just accountants from other firms as well that are ranking in the big four accounting firms, or it's only a few number of accountants from there. And then another piece of news I wanted to talk about was something that came out about Deloitte. Deloitte is creating 300 new jobs in Ireland. That's pretty big news because they came out and they advertised it. They did press releases and they released stuff on their social media. And these jobs are going to be across all lines of service. And it'll include various fields, including technology. So even though we're in the pandemic, it's hitting Europe pretty bad. There's a lot of work to be done in the UK, in Ireland, just globally. There's more work to get done. The economy's coming back. So people that are looking for a job, there's going to be a lot of big four accounting jobs coming out. So that's just some good news. I mean, if you're in Ireland, you can obviously apply to this. And if you scale this to the other firms will be hiring as well, but not to the scale, because you got to remember Deloitte is the largest employer of the big four accounting firms, and they have the most consulting jobs. So that's something to keep in mind there. But those are the news stories for today. We have the Vault accounting list out that ranks the big four accounting firms by the employee survey, and then Deloitte is hiring people, even though they fired people during the pandemic, but now they're back out there hiring, and I'm sure we're only going to be continue seeing that more and more. So that's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast to get future updates. Support us financially through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes of this podcast. And if you can't do that, then subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video on our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.